Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Wookie ball python. You probably haven't heard of the Wookie. It's a fairly new morph on the market. It's only been out for about 7 years and it's actually a dark morph. And I kind of stumbled on the Wookie. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a lot of research looking at all the snakes over on Morphmarket. There's like hundreds of thousands of snakes over there. And every now and then I find this really breathtaking dark snake over on Morphmarket. I'm like, what in the world is that? Come to find out, there is Wookie in the mix with some of these ball pythons. And I'd say as far as a dark morph, a new morph just coming out, I'd say Wookie probably has the most potential out of any other brand new dark morph on the market. It's pretty amazing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to jump over to the internet and I want to show you the amazing potential of the Wookie ball python. Alright, so I want to jump back and forth between the world of ball pythons and Morphmarket, and I want to show you the Wookie. This is what a Wookie looks like, and at first glance I'd say it's really close to a normal ball python, but you can actually see some differences. Most Wookies seem to have kind of this coppery sheen to them, a completely different color, and a lot of the ones I've seen actually have a reduced pattern, so not really the Roswell gray alien heads on the sides. As a matter of fact, most of these Wookies that I've seen, not really in this one, but I've seen a lot of them where in these little patterns on the sides they have some like pixelation where you can actually see like some kind of granulation or something in the pattern on the side. You really don't get the solid pattern in a lot of cases, and it's kind of interesting. I've seen some people trying to breed two Wookies together, and for some reason so far no one has produced a super Wookie, and it could be that it's just a dominant gene. Usually with a dominant gene in kind of ball python lingo, there's something wrong where you actually can't produce a super with two copies of the gene once you breed two of them together. So I think it's kind of new on the market. The jury's still out whether it's dominant or co-dominant, but if you actually did produce the super, I would imagine you'd produce a really dark, almost jet black snake. And some of these dark morphs usually don't have any pattern at all, and you end up with a patternless, really almost a black snake or a really dark brown. It's kind of interesting. So what I want to do is I want to show you some of the more popular base genes, some of the regular genes that we work with, and then I want to add Wookie to those genes so you can see the effect of the Wookie in some of these combos. And the first one I want to start with is the pastel. This is what a pastel looks like, and pastel is probably one of the most common ball pythons in the industry. It's really a bright yellow. A lot of times the pastel will actually reduce the pattern, and a lot of times pastels will kind of brown out as they age unless you mix them with certain genes like fire or desert coast or something like that. Sometimes you can get super bright pastels that retain their brightness as they age and mature. But this time we actually want to go to the dark side and mix pastel with a dark Wookie. Let's take a look at this combo. This is the pastel Wookie, and just take a look at this combo. It's pretty amazing. I actually stumbled across this and I was like, hey, the first time I saw this, I was like, hey, the Wookie definitely has some potential when you're seeing some just really simple two gene combos with the Wookie and the pastel. Pretty amazing. And usually on a lot of these Wookie combos I see a really dark top of the snake, and a lot of times it actually outlines the patterns on the sides with kind of a black, almost like someone took a Sharpie and outlined the patterns on the sides. Makes for a really awesome combo, just the pastel and the Wookie. So this is a black pastel. This is actually another dark morph, and it's kind of interesting if you're going to the dark side to actually mix a couple dark morphs together. Sometimes you can get super impressive combinations, and if you actually take two black pastels, breed them together, you get an almost jet black snake that's completely patternless. Really awesome snake. This is what happens when you take the black pastel and mix it with the Wookie. Take a look at this snake. This is the black pastel Wookie. This is really awesome. As a matter of fact, at first glance, you're looking at this, you start thinking, it'd be really neat to actually mix other genes in, like maybe pastel, maybe something to really make the pastel pop out, like fire or orange dream or yellow belly or something like that. And a lot of times you can, in a lot of these dark morphs, if you choose the right genes, you can actually have some really bright, colorful spots and patterns on the snake with a really dark black background. Sometimes it could be really impressive, the contrast between the darks and the lights. So this is the Woma ball python. The Woma is kind of interesting. It looks really similar to the spider. A lot of people consider it to be in what they call the spider complex. Sometimes it can even be susceptible to a head wobble or neurological issues, but it's kind of interesting. It's completely different than the spider. It actually mixes with genes completely different than the spider. So when you're looking at Woma in combinations, you can't really get the same kind of an effect as you would with the spider. This is what happens when you mix the Woma with the Wookie. Take a look at this. You actually get the Woma Wookie, which is almost a tongue twister. And it kind of at the first glance on this, I'm really surprised that the Wookie completely destroys the Woma pattern. You don't get any pattern. Usually like with the spider, when you mix the spider in with other combos, a lot of times you get a really strong spider influence. And I haven't seen a lot of Woma combinations where it would actually completely wipe out the pattern. As a matter of fact, it seems like the Woma wipes out the Wookie too. As if someone handed me this snake, I'd be hard pressed to say that there's either Woma or Wookie in this mix. It almost looks like some other different combos that I kind of have in mind, you know, with like a disco fire or something like that. It's kind of an interesting combo. It makes me wonder if this is the right picture for the Wookie Woma. Really an unexpected combo. So here is the pinstripe. The pinstripe's another dominant mutation. One of my favorite snakes. I produce a few pinstripes every year, and they are probably one of my favorite morphs. They're relatively inexpensive and about as bright gold of a snake as you can get. This is what happens when you take the pinstripe and you work it into the Wookie. Take a look at this. It completely destroys the pattern on the side. You can definitely see a really strong pinstripe right down the top of the snake. It makes for a really interesting combo. It's really interesting how it really wipes out the pattern, just really jumbles it up on the sides. Seems like it works really good with pinstripe. So here is the Lemon Blast. The Lemon Blast is actually the pinstripe with the pastel in there, and I actually have quite a few Lemon Blast females. I produce quite a few Lemon Blasts every year. This is what happens when you take the Wookie and add it to the Lemon Blast. Take a look at this. It completely destroys the pattern on this. It's really amazing how strong of an influence the Wookie acts on the pinstripe. The pinstripe's usually visually dominant, and even the Lemon Blast, it takes a really visually strong gene to actually disrupt the pattern on the pinstripe or the Lemon Blast. Makes for a really interesting combo, and the head's kind of interesting too. Kind of almost gives it like a black head with a little bit of fading right on the back of the head. Kind of interesting. So here is the Cinnamon. The Cinnamon's another dark morph, and if you're going towards the dark side, it's, you know, sometimes dual dark morphs are the king. It's pretty amazing, some of these combos. This is what happens when you mix Cinnamon with Wookie. Take a look at this one. This one is probably one of my favorite. Really super dark. Almost completely wipes out the pattern with just a little bit of freckling right along the back. It makes for a really impressive dark snake, and it's, I'd say probably on this one, I'd say the picture probably doesn't do this snake justice. I can guarantee you that this snake would be really impressive in person. It almost has like a velvety look to it as far as what I'm seeing, kind of looking through the kind of the exposure of this picture. I can definitely see some really good potential breeding the Cinnamon to the Wookie. So here is a lesser ball python. The lesser is actually in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. You breed two lessers together, you get an all-white snake with blue eyes, and they're actually calling this one a funky striped lesser, because normally what happens in a lesser is you get these little dog bone kind of patterns that go all the way down the top of the snake, and usually you don't get these stripes down the lesser. That's why they're saying it's a lesser, but the pattern is kind of unusual and unexpected on the lesser. This is what happens when you take lesser and you work it into Wookie. Take a look at this combo. This is really awesome. I really like the high contrast between the black and the color on the snake. And it's kind of interesting with a lot of these Wookies that the black doesn't go all the way down the snake. It kind of stops about halfway down. It almost looks like it has a little bit of calico in it, but I'm seeing kind of a pattern. It seems like a lot of these combos almost act like a natural, artificial calico in the snake, which I really haven't seen in any of the other dark morphs. Kind of makes for a really unique dark morph. So here is a clown ball python. The clown is the king of combos when it comes to recessives, and it works pretty interesting when you actually mix it with the Wookie. Here is the Wookie clown. Take a look at this. And this was kind of unexpected for me. I would expect that it would even turn it even darker than this. And it's kind of interesting. You can see the dark right on the top, and it almost stops partially down the snake like you've seen in a lot of other combos. It almost seems like you almost get this blanket of dark just over the top half of the snake in a lot of these combos, leaving the bottom really kind of white or washed out a little bit. And it's kind of interesting in this one. I don't think I've ever seen a clown with these little hearts in it. That is really neat. As a matter of fact, if you look at Bobby that's around my neck, the bamboo ball python, he's got little hearts on his side that are like this. He's pretty much the only snake I've ever seen with the little hearts. So it's kind of interesting that it comes out in a clown, which is the first time I've ever seen it. This is the fireball python. I actually produced my first fires this year. I bred my fire pied to a normal, got some fires, 100% het pieds, and they looked exactly like this. Fire is a pretty awesome gene. You can definitely tell the difference between fires and normals. It has kind of this creamy, kind of a yellow, like almost a caramel color look to them. You breed two fires together and you get an all-white snake with black eyes. It's actually in the black-eyed leucistic complex. This is what happens when you take fire and you mix it in with Wookie. Take a look at this. This is pretty awesome. You actually get what almost looks like some of the other Wookies that I've been looking at. Not a really strong influence of the fire. You can definitely tell it kind of changes it to more of a caramel color, maybe lightens it a little bit. And I'd say usually fire, when you mix it in with a lot of combos, it really lightens and enhances the background. So I'd say it's probably taken away a lot of the really dark colors from the Wookie. And you can definitely see kind of the pixelation in the pattern on the sides of this one. That's kind of the characteristic of the Wookie gene. So here's the last one I wanted to show you. This is the champagne. The champagne is usually kind of tough to work with. There's just a few things you can actually do with champagne, because essentially what happens when you mix other genes in with champagne, a lot of times you'll get a completely patternless snake that is a slightly different color than the parents. And sometimes you can actually get a little bit of spotting right down the very top of the champagne. I'd say it's kind of maybe 50-50 that you actually get these spots. And it's kind of a difficult gene to work with, but there's some really amazing things you can do with champagne, such as the gray matter, which is a really awesome thing. If you've never seen the gray matter, it's pretty awesome. And this is what happens when you make champagne with the Wookie. Take a look at this. This is completely unexpected as far as what I would have expected with the champagne Wookie. This almost looks like a pied, and it's kind of interesting. If you actually take a champagne and you breed it to a visual pied, you get a whole clutch of offspring that are champagne 100% het pied, and they all visually look like they have pied in them, which is kind of an interesting anomaly with the champagne. If you actually make a champagne pied, it's a completely white snake with no color or pattern at all. So it's kind of an interesting anomaly that you actually take Wookie, work it into champagne, and you get a pied looking ball python. Alright, so it is time for the question of the day. And OTF Max 666 asks, can a full-size female ball python choke you out? And that is a very good question. I'd say for the most part, ball pythons around your neck like this are really not a danger at all. I would probably avoid like toddlers or something like that, putting a snake around their neck. Maybe just kind of hold it in their lap or something. Keep it, away from their neck. But I would say for the most part, a full-size adult person could easily overcome the power of a ball python. They're really not that strong, but they can choke out a little bit. As a matter of fact, when I first started working with Bobby here, he is my bamboo ball python. He's about 7 years old, and when I first started putting him around my neck the first few months, he would really put the death grip on me and almost choke me out. Well, let me tell you, I always have enough power to overcome the power of a ball python. Never really in any real danger. But I'd say if you have really big snakes like reticulated pythons, I would definitely avoid wrapping them around your neck or wrapping them even around your chest. I actually have a really big retic. She's about 85 pounds and about 17 feet long. Lucy is a really big snake, and one time she actually got around my chest and almost knocked the wind out of me, and you definitely don't want to wrap a snake like that around your neck. That's where you can really get in trouble. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.